Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SB Reacts where today I'm going to be checking out 3 tracks from an act named Electric Falls. And if we switch over to here, we've got ourselves Eternal Flame, the first of these. So apparently this is a project from Brett Sizzler. Apparently they produce all the music themselves and they play and write all the music and play all the guitar and bass guitar. And then we've got James Noel on drums. Apparently we have Kate Glock on vocals. So we're going to listen through each of these tracks from start till finish and we're going to hear what we think. Let's go, Eternal Flame. Let's do it. What do we got? Apparently this is the Bangles cover of their song. The drumming is extremely tight. Great transition to the harder objects here. It's just nice to have a separate guitar lead here to add a bit of color to the mix and have a bit of lead diversity there. And that vibrato on the vocals there is fantastic. That was a clean hit of that high note as well. Not as familiar with the ending of the original, but I appreciate that we're fleshing it out more and allowing ourselves more That's beautiful. Now, well done. Awesome work there. Fantastic stuff. So I think that is the first track we have here, the Bangles, the Electric Falls cover of Eternal Flame. I think this song is about someone who feels that attraction across the entire spectrum to another, and they just really adore that person. They're just very important to them, and I've got to show some love for that. You know, it's a beautiful thing to be able to have that connection to someone, to kind of realize that it's just an eternal flame. It's just a thing that'll sort of transcend time and space. It's wonderful. One of the things I appreciate about this is just the quality of the vocal performance there. I feel like we did really well to pay homage, and it was a nice tribute to the original there. We were comfortable in hidden chest voice, nice use of legato vibrato passages there, use of call responses was good. And just generally the color and texture of it, the expression seemed sincere and authentic, and we sold it really well. So I think the vocals were well handled for this first track. I think additional to that, while again we were trying to sort of like keep to a sense of sort of like a connection to the original with the chord progressions. I think the bass line was really welcoming and how active it was, and I love the sound of the drums. You know that guy could really play. Like the tightness of those grooves, the 16th, the ghost notes, etc. Fantastic. But it's also just allowing ourselves to get a little bit heavier on those hooks for a little bit of dynamic range and a bit kind of further bit of oomph there. It was a nice rounded tone to it there, where paying again, being respectful to what was already there, but we're kind of adding our own spin, a bit of sizzle to it, which I like. And I think that mid solo section there had this kind of wistful, sort of like really beautiful tone to it that was kind of ethereal within the mix, but it colored it really neatly. So ultimately, just really fantastic. I'm not as familiar with that solo, so it might have been like a note for note rendition or their own sort of spin on it. Either way, I adored what was going on there. I'm thankful to have heard it. I think it's a really great start to proceedings and a fantastic first impression. I think finally, it's just the quality of the studio production there in general. I think that it's not just that we can play authentically to the original, whilst also having solid vocal technique, but it's that in general, the leveling, the studio production, recording, mixing, mastering was tight. And it's another first impression and no complaints in post. It was carried through really, really well. So yeah, we've got track number 2 now though, Travelers. Let's go, let's do it. Like a Strymon-esque kind of reverb or delay to it. Very spacey and mysterious. Great combination of toms and hi-hats. It's quite a busy composition. There's a lot going on with the drums, bass, and guitar parts, but it's nice that the vocals still has room to breathe in there. Not sure if I entirely dig the way we finished that. It's not a vocal, like comment on the vocal. It's just it seemed kind of like awkward having to drive after the end part. But that's okay though. I think so far everything's been handled pretty well. As the clock keeps ticking by, just know the world won't wait. My mind returns to the present. Yeah, there's an interesting delay, chord note delay to the vocals, which I think helps us set in the mix. Great pinch harmonic there, though. That was sick, man. That was cool. I love these tom fills as well, the way they go around the headphones. There's an interesting chromatic note in there that I'm not sure if it fits, but everything else is fantastic. Great tails on that. Not always a massive fan of AI made videos. I'm assuming this is AI made just because of the way that it looks and how it's kind of going between all these different sort of sub images and stuff like that as it processes. But I think that one was really pretty. I mean, apologies if it is not AI. Still, that was cool. That was Travelers. So I think Travelers is a long form piece, was about someone realizing that they're stuck in this position that they need to get out of by moving forward. They have all these signals and signs that if they continue to push forward, that things will improve, or, you know, they'll get better. But they are also cognizant of just the risk associated with that. I think part of what I appreciate as we get through the song is that it gets to a point where you just feel a lot more comfortable. And I adore that. The reason I adore that, you know, the last thing you want is to feel as if you are just kind of stuck in that. You want a song of this length to be able to kind of take you somewhere. And I think that is the journey we have as we go through it. There's like a lot of the key elements introduced near the beginning of the track. You know, you have like the drum kit with like a lot of the cool little tom fills, the clean kind of Strymon-esque kind of arpeggiated sort of clean parts of wistful kind of tones to them sort of circling around the stereo field. You have a nice sort of like rounded tone to the bass guitar, which is reinforcing those root notes. But clearly that doesn't happen straight away. The guitar is most of the beginning. And so that within itself is solid development. I have everything absolutely at once. To have the distorted guitars come in kind of like they did with the previous track in that hook section there, but not in a way where it was kind of quote unquote brutal or too like too on your face or too on the nose. I just think that it was great almost to stick to power chordal elements for those hook sections to almost make things a bit more simpler with the main message we're trying to absorb. But for the track to continue to kind of go between those in a way where we follow the vocalist along their journey, I think is effective. I think, again, having another solo section around that 3 minute 20 mark or 3.5 minute mark was great because he had a couple of verses to kind of get more kind of like context of what was occurring there. And then they felt confident to allow that halfway point for there to be an alternative lead. So I think structurally that was great as well. We have a thoroughly proficient and explorative performance on the kit as well, which I really appreciate. I just think it's fantastic to be able to have your entire drum kit involved in a song which is already quite busy with its melodies and harmonies in a way that isn't too much. It's like they've managed to find a way to have so much going on, but to never have it seem to want to compete. And I think that is partially because of the use of dynamics. You're not having all the hits the same loudness. You need to know where to put your accents here. And it's almost like we have some syncopated parts, but also some halftime elements going into normal time in the hook in order to be able to instantiate a change of feel to that. Oh no, never mind. I just double checked and it was halftime, I think. So there was like almost like we were kind of stuck and trying to push forward and just finding out it difficult to drive ahead. Yeah, fantastic damage range, wonderful performance on the kit there. I think the final thing I'll sort of talk about is the color of the guitars there. While there were some chromaticisms I didn't necessarily completely connect with, I appreciate that we're not just sticking with our triads, we're working with some sixths and sevenths and some, intervals that are a little bit dissonant, but not to a point where it's a detriment. It's kind of inferring that despite the beauty, there are some difficulties we're having. It's almost like it's a future that we can't see because we're currently experiencing the trickiness of the current. I think just having the effects alongside those guitar parts makes it seem very sophisticated and sleek and mature. But it also kind of makes it almost seem like a spiritual experience there. Like it's like an out of body thing, almost like a future, a purpose of sorts, one past what we can see there. And it kind of gets into the philosophy of the whole thing as well as, like the outer body kind of experience. So I think ultimately it was the actual structure of the track, how it went through and the way that we kind of introduced things and took a story with the vocals alongside just their incredible sort of like performance on the kit overall with a variety of different fills and how they managed to not compete or stick their nose out too much in a way that was helpful. But I also think it's just, the color of the guitar harmonies and how they sort of like went up and down in peaks and troughs as well. I think it was fantastic. But finally, we have Shattered, track number 3. Oh, it's heavy. Great use of that bell there. Polyrhythms. interesting change of time signature. Nice use of the bass accenting with the cymbal hits of the drums. Oh, we're going for a fade out now. That's nice. Okay, so that was Shattered by Electric Falls, track number 3 for today. So I think that this track is about someone who has been going through some difficulties or strife in their life, and they're in a position now where they really just kind of want to get past that and move on and sort of like break free of those chains and live a life where they are free. You know, through the mist and the haze, nothing can stop them. And so I think that that's a track where it'll have a wide audience of people who can kind of relate and vibe along to that. So I think in that sense, it's very good. I do like the come on part at the start. So the first part, the kind of vocal fry that we have in that expression is just a fantastic way to kick it off. It's very kind of like new metal from the early 2000s, and I dig that. You know, it's definitely a vibe and a style. And I think that overall the vocal performance is good, but just knowing we have a bit kind of more extra in the tank for those performances is great. I think in addition, it was kind of interesting for us to explore different time signatures within this one. It was great to hear us playing with polyrhythms and different rhythmical devices to kind of make it a bit more intriguing or substantial. That was kind of dope. And generally, it's just you know, what can we do to improve this? I think that it's a piece where we're very comfortable with the chord progressions and harmonies that we have. We have a similar intensity for a lot of it. I think it's more or less a celebration of us breaking out of our chains throughout the 5 minutes. And it was nice again to have another guitar solo in there structurally. It's kind of like a double-edged sword because part of me wants the sort of attention deficit thing where it's like, I need there to be a bigger shift maybe around that 4 to 5 minute mark to maybe illustrate a sense of adjustment in like the story or something I have like, but I want that to be an overall thing. And I just don't think that would have necessarily suited this piece. I think we were more sort of declaring our position of being out of that mire and off to a new future. I think in essence, even though in a lot of different situations, it might have been better to have more range harmonically or melodically, I think it's still effective, and having different leads was good. Yeah, definitely having a different time signature, taking away things. It made it a bit more kind of mysterious and intriguing. I don't know if it necessarily benefited it, but I just think compositionally it's just great that we're exploring things outside of, 4/4s and stuff like that. I like that we're messing around not just with what's capable on beat and even off beat, but just removing them all together. I think finally it's a song where I think to its credit, even though I mentioned I typically want to have more range harmonically or more sort of chapters in it, I nonetheless appreciate that I was able to kind of listen through it for the 5 minutes and still feel as if there was no filler. I think when tracks are longer than 4 minutes, there is a risk that if you have a similar kind of feel to it overall, similar kind of like instrumental layering, similar kind of approaches. But I think in this one, because it was more of an elaboration of our journey that we had there, it was a similar kind of situation, although less colorful to the previous track, Travelers. And the different time signatures gave a kind of progressive and more sort of like grungy feel to it. So I think that they're just different styles of music that I feel are still compatible. You can hear them and go, yeah, I understand, not just because of the singer in front of everything, but also I can see how things sort of tie together, and ultimately I feel it's nonetheless effective. There's nothing I'd want to change about this one. I think it's also a very good track. And so welcome to the conclusion of my review of these 3 tracks from an act named Electric Falls, titled Eternal Flames, Travelers, and Shattered. Now, I've spoken about what these tracks are about individually. Eternal Flame being a cover of the Bangles song. They're talking about a love that will never die, effectively, if I'm not mistaken there. Whatever the kind of love that is, I'm not sure. I think it's a romantic love, but they also, in the video, had like family members mourning and stuff like that. So it could just be an overall kind of thing. I think it's between 2 people though. But Traveler is more of someone like knowing they have to let go of the past and walk towards the future, and because it's calling for us, we just have to sort of accept that journey in our life, and it had sort of a sense of spiritual, kind of outer world kind of experience to it. And then we had Shattered, which is about someone breaking free from their chains and trying to find themselves in a new light and kind of explore the world anew without the limitations and restrictions placed upon them. And so I think that these are things that there'll be an audience for. People will listen to them and kind of be able to appreciate what's going on. I feel it's effective. One of the things I appreciated about these 3 tracks overall, because I've spoken about each of them individually in their conclusion sections, they had little mini conclusions at the end of each track, but I think overall the storytelling and the vocals were solid. We emoted the way that we needed to. There was a bit of Fry and Shattered at the start with the come on kind of new metal, kind of alt rock kind of feel to it. But we showed that we could go from like a track like Eternal Flames, which is a cover of like a bit of a softer track, and have that kind of more sort of like nuance leaning to it, with a bit of romanticism involved, to Travelers being a bit more sort of like introspective there. And they're just different styles of vocals that you need for those kind of music as well. I think Shattered as well, being a bit more kind of like edgier, was cool as well. I think that ultimately we smashed it across the board with our vocal takes. No complaints there whatsoever. Hit the notes really cleanly. I think additionally, I'm going to comment on the guitar and bass parts as well as the drums for my last 2 things, because I usually talk about like 3 things in these sort of like final conclusions and then any constructive feedback on things that could be adjusted. So I feel that overall the guitar parts were tremendous there. We showed a nuance of how to articulate our chord progressions, arpeggios, harmonies, etc., with the Bangles in a way that made sense. With the original was adding our sense of spice with it, with the distortion and kind of like heavier components there. I thought that was really well handled there. We played really well. There's a great sort of like sense of clarity and articulation to the performance there. The solo sections were never filler. They were voiced quite well and added their own sort of like nuance to the mix. And I think we again, with the power chord elements of Shattered and with the more sort of mystical, wide variety of different interludes, extensions, and parts going on with Travelers, as well as the effects crossing on those, I just thought there was a great range of different guitar riffs, solo parts, and ideas there that were compelling. I think additional to that, it is the quality of the performance on the drum kit. They're a phenomenal drummer. There was never any point where it felt like too much or too little. We showed a wide, like a prowess over a wide variety of different styles. We had a fantastic control over the main sort of like rhythms like 4/4, 8ths, triplets, and 16ths. We were comfortable with ghost notes, exploring the entire drum kit, having sort of Tom Philly kind of verse parts and working towards cymbal-oriented kick and snare with sort of 16th ghost note and sort of rolly parts there. We did fills that went from left to right side of the stereo field there. We explored the entire drum kit. And when you went to sort of like take a step back to come away, there weren't drums the entire time, because you understand that wouldn't have necessarily been appropriate or helpful. And it's just the tightness of the performance. Well, we were never out of time, never out of tempo. It was fantastic. And you just need that kind of level of expertise on a drum kit to be able to carry a track forward in this day and age, you know. Ultimately, it was the vocals, the guitar parts, and the drums that I really appreciate about these tracks overall. Don't get me wrong, the studio production was fantastic, and I appreciated how the tracks are written. I've spoken of those more in their own individual things, but just those are my favorite parts of these songs. And I think typically, you know, I've got nothing I'd want to change about these. There's clearly some exploration about the identity they want to go for with these, but they can kind of write tracks to suit what they're talking about. And that's the kind of, I suppose, like the album or the affectation you're going to have is that you don't just have one style of music that you're going to have 12 tracks of. It's a variety box kind of situation, I imagine, with an album or something like that. But yeah, it's good stuff. Effectively, this is my review of these tracks from an act named Electric Falls, titled Eternal Flames, the Bangles cover of Eternal Flame, Travelers, and Shattered, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go show them some love via their various social medias and their YouTube page, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever through the crazy stuff going on in the world, and I'll catch you in the next SP Reacts. Spiderhands out.